Frostline Economics presents American Dynasties, the Goldman Sachs, Pritzker, and Fisher families. When people hear words like ultra-wealthy financiers or Jewish family dynasties, their minds often jump straight to the Rothschilds. That name is legendary, yes, but it belongs to Europe, to a different era. When you add America into the picture, the story changes. Today on Frostline Economics, we are exploring three influential American families of Ashkenazi Jewish heritage whose journeys shaped entire sectors of the U.S. economy. These are the stories of the Goldman Sachs family, the Pritzker family, and the Fisher family. Each story is rooted not in myth, but in entrepreneurship, innovation, in the immigrant dream. This episode isn't about control or conspiracy. It's about how determination, education, and vision built industries, shaped institutions, and inspired future generations. Let's begin with the family whose name became synonymous with modern finance, Goldman Sachs. In 19th century Bavaria, amid quiet villages and rolling hills, a young man named Marcus Goldman dreamed of more. Born on December 9, 1821, to a modest Ashkenazi Jewish family, his father, Wolf Goldman, worked as a small farmer and cattle trader. The family worked hard, but sought a better future. When the revolutions of 1848 swept Europe, Marcus made a life-changing decision. He would cross the Atlantic to America, the land of opportunity. Upon arriving, Marcus Americanized his name and began humbly as a street peddler with a horse-drawn cart. It was not glamour, but it was freedom. He worked tirelessly, saving every dollar. In Philadelphia, fate reunited him with an old friend, Joseph Sachs. Their friendship would become one of the most powerful partnerships in finance. In 1869, Marcus Goldman moved to New York City, the heart of American finance, and opened Marcus Goldman and Company. He specialized in commercial paper, short-term credit for small businesses. Within a few years, he was handling millions in transactions. In 1882, he invited his son-in-law, Samuel Sachs, to join him, creating M. Goldman and Sachs. 3 years later, his son Henry and another son-in-law, Ludwig Dreyfus, joined the firm, which soon became Goldman, Sachs and Company. In 1896, they joined the New York Stock Exchange. Marcus retired as the firm's success soared. Under Henry Goldman and Samuel Sachs, the company evolved into a powerhouse. They pioneered the concept of using a company's future earnings to attract long-term investment, a revolutionary idea at the time. Goldman Sachs underwrote the public offerings of Sears, Roebuck and Company, Underwood Typewriter, B.F. Goodrich, and F.W. Woolworth. Their innovations fueled American industrial growth and changed the way business financing worked. Throughout the 20th century, Goldman Sachs continued to evolve. It became a leader in mergers, acquisitions, and international expansion. By the 1980s, the firm had joined the London and Tokyo stock exchanges. It played key roles in major public offerings, including Microsoft's in 1986, and later became deeply involved with Silicon Valley's growth, advising technology giants through booms and crashes alike. In the 2000s, it launched GS Bank and Marcus by Goldman Sachs, marking its move into consumer banking. Goldman Sachs became one of the primary dealers in U.S. Treasury securities, managing national debt instruments and ensuring liquidity across markets. Its operations spanned equities, credit, and global currencies, making it an indispensable player in modern finance. But beyond banking, the Goldman Sachs family has a long tradition of philanthropy. They funded scholarships, research, and cultural institutions, contributing to education, healthcare, and the arts. Their story is not one of domination, but of innovation, of turning vision into legacy. Next, we move to Chicago, to a family whose name became synonymous with hotels, politics, and philanthropy, the Pritzker family. The Pritzkers traced their roots to Ukraine. In 1881, Nicholas Pritzker emigrated to Chicago, where he became a lawyer and instilled in his family a belief in hard work, education, and legacy. His sons carried this forward, founding Pritzker and Pritzker, a law firm that became the foundation of the family's empire. Abe, Harry, and Jack Pritzker each specialized in different areas of law, but soon Abe and Jack saw opportunity beyond the courtroom. In the 1930s, they began investing in real estate and small businesses. while Harry kept the law firm focused on managing the family's legal affairs. Their strategic creation of trust gave them flexibility and helped them expand their wealth responsibly. By the next generation, the family had diversified across industries. J. Pritzker, along with his brothers Robert and Donald, transformed their wealth into a multi-billion-dollar industrial and hospitality empire. Jay and Donald co-founded Hyatt Hotels, beginning with the Hyatt Regency Atlanta, famous for its dramatic atrium design. Meanwhile, Jay and Robert developed the Marmon Group, a holding company that controlled dozens of industrial firms. Over time, Hyatt grew into one of the most recognizable hotel brands in the world. Later generations continued to expand the family's reach into luxury, wellness, and boutique hospitality. John Pritzker co-founded Mandara Spa and invested in Carmel Valley Ranch, merging brands to create Commune Hotels and eventually Two Roads Hospitality, a network of nearly 100 properties generating billions in annual revenue. Penny Pritzker, Donald's daughter, founded Classic Residence by Hyatt, later VI, offering high-end senior living solutions. She later became U.S. Secretary of Commerce, bringing business expertise into government. J.B. Pritzker, another of Donald's children, became deeply involved in entrepreneurship and technology investment, helping launch the Chicago Innovation Hub known as 1871. In 2018, he was elected governor of Illinois, continuing the family's tradition of leadership in both business and civic life. The Pritzker family's success lies in diversification, structure, and long-term thinking. They built an empire that could adapt to change, from law to real estate, industry to hospitality, and now technology and governance. Their philanthropy, focused on education, culture, and public service, remains a cornerstone of their legacy. Finally, let's turn to the West Coast, to the story of Donald and Doris Fisher, founders of Gap Inc., who revolutionized retail fashion and turned a small idea into a global empire. Donald Fisher was born in 1928, Doris Fisher in 1931. They were both raised in hardworking Jewish families in San Francisco. Donald earned a business degree from the University of California, Berkeley, served in the U.S. Navy, and later entered the construction business. In the 1960s, while renovating hotels, he leased space to Levi Strauss & Company. That decision sparked a revolutionary retail concept. In 1969, they opened the first Gap store near City College in San Francisco. It sold Levi's jeans and vinyl records, targeting young consumers with a modern, accessible vibe. The store's name, The Gap, Churn, referred to the generation gap of the era. Its success was immediate. By 1972, they launched their own brand, and by 1973, Gap went public. The Fishers built a retail empire defined by simplicity and scale. They acquired Banana Republic, created Old Navy, and later added Athleta, a multi-brand strategy that allowed Gap Inc. to serve diverse markets. Old Navy reached $1 billion in sales in just 4 years. After Donald's death in 2009, his sons John, William, and Robert continued the business. They guided Gap Inc. through economic shifts, invested in technology and sustainability, and expanded globally to over 40 countries. John Fisher became the owner of the Oakland Athletics baseball team and the San Jose Earthquakes soccer club, broadening the family's influence into sports and entertainment. Doris Fisher became a renowned art collector and philanthropist. Her collection of contemporary American art, featuring works by Andy Warhol, Ellsworth Kelly, and Richard Serra, is among the finest in the world. The Fisher family's legacy extends far beyond retail. It's a testament to how design, culture, and commerce can merge to define an era. Across these three stories, Goldman Sachs, the Pritzkers, and the Fishers, we see the same themes: perseverance, innovation, and impact. Each family began with modest roots. Each saw opportunity where others saw limits. Each transformed entire industries through vision and discipline. Their influence is undeniable, but influence is not ownership. No family, no matter how successful, owns a nation. What these families built were institutions that became part of the American framework: banks that finance growth, hotels that define hospitality, and brands that shape everyday culture. This is the essence of the American dream. The idea that through resilience, education, and courage, one can rise to create something lasting. These families are not myths. They are examples of how ambition and ingenuity, when guided by purpose, can leave an enduring mark on history. I'm your host, and this is Frostline Economics. If you enjoyed this exploration of American dynasties, subscribe for more in-depth stories about wealth, innovation, and the people who built the systems we live in today. While the Goldman Sachs, Pritzker, and Fisher families represent the triumph of entrepreneurial will and immigrant ambition, they also form part of a much broader narrative, the evolution of wealth and power in the United States. America's economic landscape did not emerge from isolated stories. It is the product of interconnected families, industries, and ideas that shaped modern capitalism itself. Let's move beyond those early dynasties and explore how their influence rippled into the 20th and 21st centuries, an era where finance, technology, and influence became one. The rise of financial aristocracy. In the early 1900s, the United States was still defining what financial power meant. The Industrial Revolution had produced titans, men like J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, and Cornelius Vanderbilt. But what came after was something new. Families who no longer needed factories or oil wells to shape the future. They controlled capital itself. The Goldman Sachs family's model of financial engineering, using a company's potential future earnings as a metric for investment, became the foundation for modern venture capital and private equity. It was no longer about owning railroads. It was about owning opportunity. The same mindset spread through generations of investors who would later define Wall Street. By mid-century, America's wealth had become institutional. The families who once ran single companies now ran systems, banks, holding groups, universities, and charities that functioned as both economic engines and cultural institutions. The Morgan family influenced central banking. The Rockefellers transformed philanthropy and education. The Goldman Sachs network spread its alumni across the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, and the White House. This was not conspiracy. It was consolidation. The lines between business and governance blurred, creating what historians call the American establishment. From steel to silicon, a new era of dynasties. By the late 20th century, a new kind of dynasty began to form, one born from technology. While the Pritzkers and Fishers represented the industrial and retail revolutions, names like Gates, Jobs, and Bezos would symbolize the digital age. Ironically, the financial scaffolding that allowed these new empires to rise was built by the very systems established by families like Goldman Sachs. Goldman helped take Microsoft public in 1986, the same move that created the first wave of tech billionaires. Their network extended deep into Silicon Valley, providing capital, counsel, and often crisis management. The Pritzker family's ventures into hospitality and investment quietly intersected with this new world as well. Hyatt's later partnerships in tech-driven booking platforms and AI-based logistics systems reflect a recurring truth in American wealth. Adaptability is survival. The Fisher family's retail empire evolved similarly. Gap Inc. leveraged data analytics and e-commerce early on, embracing the transformation from physical storefronts to digital ecosystems. Their shift mirrors the greater story of capitalism's metamorphosis, from tangible production to intangible value. Philanthropy as power. If the early industrialists built America's infrastructure, their successors built its conscience. Wealth in the modern era became intertwined with responsibility, or at least the appearance of it. The Rockefellers established the model with the Rockefeller Foundation. The Pritzkers, with their focus on education and civic life, extended it. And today, tech philanthropists continue the tradition under a new banner: effective altruism. The Goldman Sachs family, for example, contributed heavily to educational endowments and cultural institutions, recognizing that influence over knowledge is influence over the future. The Pritzkers invested in civic development and public policy, directly shaping the environments they once merely inhabited. The Fishers devoted millions to art and design, controlling in many ways how culture itself is preserved and interpreted. Philanthropy became the soft face of hard power. Through donations, endowments, and think tanks, Elite families influenced everything from university curricula to urban development. Even the way we talk about innovation, leadership, and impact echoes the moral branding these dynasties helped invent. Interconnection of finance and policy. It's often said that Wall Street and Washington are two sides of the same coin. The career paths of many political figures prove this point. Henry Paulson, former CEO of Goldman Sachs, became U.S. Treasury Secretary during the 2008 financial crisis. Robert Rubin, another Goldman alumnus, had served in the same position a decade earlier. Even the architects of post-crisis economic reforms were often drawn from the same elite circles that shaped corporate America. This revolving door isn't inherently sinister, but it reveals how deeply intertwined America's financial elite and political class have become. Influence today isn't about owning newspapers or railways. It's about controlling liquidity, data, and narrative. The same principle applies to families like the Pritzkers. With J.B. Pritzker as governor of Illinois, the family's century-old legacy evolved into direct political influence, not as oligarchy, but as civic continuation. Wealth had moved from private estates to public office, modern dynasties, hedge funds, tech, and legacy building. As the 21st century unfolded, a new generation of American dynasties emerged. Some built not on inheritance, but on disruption. Hedge fund founders like Ray Dalio, tech visionaries like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and digital magnates like Mark Zuckerberg now occupy the same cultural space once held by the Morgans and Rockefellers. Yet their methods, asset diversification, philanthropy, and global investment remain rooted in the frameworks built by families like Goldman, Pritzker, and Fisher. Even their philanthropic strategies mirror those earlier legacies. Bezos established the Earth Fund for Climate Initiatives. Gates redefined global health philanthropy. Musk created ventures for sustainable energy and space innovation. The narrative of wealth-driven progress, for better or worse, continues. But the difference lies in visibility. Earlier dynasties operated through quiet influence, behind closed doors and private trusts. Today's magnates broadcast their power in real time, on social media and global stages. The spectacle of success has replaced the discretion of dynasty. The cultural dimension of power money builds structures, but culture builds permanence. Doris Fisher's art collection, for instance, isn't merely aesthetic. It's a monument to taste as a legacy. Similarly, the Pritzker Architecture Prize, funded by the family, defines architectural excellence on a global scale. It's a powerful example of how cultural patronage transforms financial wealth into timeless influence. Goldman Sachs, through its global art programs and urban redevelopment projects, continues to fund culture as infrastructure, blending aesthetic value with economic strategy. These actions ensure that the family name remains synonymous with refinement, intellect, and continuity. The same applies to universities. The names inscribed on lecture halls, endowments, and scholarships, Sachs, Pritzker, Fisher, reflect not only philanthropy, but ideology. Education, art, and media have become the arenas where modern dynasties shape collective memory. Resilience and reinvention. What truly separates enduring dynasties from temporary empires is their capacity to evolve. When markets collapse or industries fade, true power doesn't vanish, it migrates. Goldman Sachs weathered depressions, recessions, and crashes. The Pritzkers adapted from law to real estate to tech. The Fishers transformed retail to survive e-commerce revolutions. Their stories teach a central lesson. In capitalism, permanence is not static, it's adaptive. Wealth that does not evolve decays. Families that fail to innovate fade into footnotes. The future of economic influence. As we look ahead, the landscape of power continues to shift. Decentralized finance, artificial intelligence, and climate economics are creating new frontiers. Yet the same families, or their institutional descendants, remain at the center of it all. Goldman Sachs invests heavily in AI-driven trading. Pritzker Ventures backs sustainable real estate and electric vehicle infrastructure. The Fisher family's philanthropic arms fund design education and sustainability projects. What emerges is a feedback loop of wealth, innovation, and cultural influence. A self-sustaining system where money shapes progress and progress justifies money. Conclusion: the continuum of legacy. The story of America's great families isn't simply about wealth, it's about architecture. The architecture of power, built over generations. From Bavarian farms to New York trading floors, from Ukrainian lawyers to Chicago governors, from small San Francisco storefronts to global fashion empires, every dynasty shares the same blueprint: vision, endurance, and adaptation. We often romanticize the myth of the self-made individual, but true influence in America has always been collective, built through families, partnerships, and institutions that last beyond a single lifetime. The dynasties of yesterday built the framework. Those of today inherit and expand it. And as Frostline Economics continues to trace the hidden structures of modern wealth, one truth remains clear: the future of power is not only financial, it is cultural, intellectual, and human. I'm your host, and this has been another deep dive into the architecture of influence. Subscribe to Frostline Economics for more explorations into how history, economy, and identity intertwine to define our world today.